Welcome to another edition of Rogues Gallery, where we count down the best of the worst villains according to your votes. This week we're counting down the robotic foes of the Transformers, with a focus on the current continuity of the IDW Gen 1 comics. Just missing out on the top 10 this week are Chief Justice Tyrest, Scorponok, and Sentinel Prime. Let's start the countdown. Number 10, Devastator. Scrapper, Hook, Bone Crusher, Longhaul, Mixmaster, and Scavenger make up a Decepticon unit known as the Constructicons. But when they come together, they form the towering gestalt known as Devastator. Devastator is one of the biggest guns the Decepticons have, and few can rival its destructive power. That is, if all the Constructicons are available to assemble. Number 9, Nemesis Prime. Originally known as Nova Prime, he was a Cybertronian leader thought lost and dead among the missing Arc-1 crew. The Arc-1 had actually discovered a portal to the dead universe, and there, the newly named Nemesis Prime gained control over the darkness, also known as the Anti-Matrix, and began plotting his return to spread the darkness through his home dimension. Number 8, Overlord. Overlord was a rare Decepticon who didn't care about power as much as he did victory, and was especially obsessed with proving physical dominance over Megatron. Overlord took over the Garrus 9 detention facility in order to get Megatron's attention, but the fight never came and the rogue Decepticon was defeated by the Wreckers. Number 7, Decepticon Justice Division. Named after the first 5 cities to fall to Megatron, Tarn, Helix, Chaos, Voss, and Tesserus founded the Decepticon Justice Division, a group of merciless killers who hunt down Decepticon deserters and have dedicated themselves to carrying on Megatron's message. This group is a ruthless band of the most dangerous Decepticons, and as far as they're concerned, the war never ended. Number 6, Soundwave. A fiercely loyal Decepticon who struggles with latent mind-reading powers, Soundwave relies on the Decepticon goal as an anchor for his focus. Within his chest cavity, he has allies such as Frenzy, Ravage, and Laserbeak, but he sees them as friends and equals, and has a harsh view on anyone who doesn't consider them the same way. Number 5, Galvatron. Once an ally of Nemesis Prime, Galvatron betrayed his leader and claimed the Heart of Darkness for himself, only to later discover a link to the universe-conquering threat of D-Void. His plan to save the universe would have accidentally led to its doom, and so he was stopped by the combined forces of the Autobots and Decepticons in an act that led to the end of their war. Number 4, Shockwave. Shockwave was once a brash and cocky senator, prone to emotional outbursts, until he was stripped of his emotions by the brutal process known as Shadowplay, and had his head and limbs replaced in the Act of Impurata. Now a cold and logic-focused threat, Shockwave calculates every move to the last second, and is willing to wait for millions of years for any one of his plans to bear fruit. Number 3, Starscream. Starscream was recruited into the Decepticon cause as a member of the Seekers, along with other flight-capable Cybertronians, and at first was genuinely committed to the Decepticon cause with Megatron as its leader. However, after Megatron's first defeat at the hands of Optimus Prime, Starscream began the first of many plans to depose the Decepticon leader. Millions of years later, as the war spread to Earth, Starscream gained leadership of the Decepticons after another of Megatron's defeats, and found himself in the possession of the Matrix of Leadership. What he didn't know was that Shockwave had rebuilt Megatron, and as soon as Starscream lost the Matrix, he was quickly and easily deposed. After the war, Starscream ran for the leader of Cybertron on a platform of abolishing factions, and after the endorsement of a cryptic prophecy, he was elected in a landslide. Although he had imperialistic tendencies, through not-so-subtle nudging by allies and government, Starscream helped found the Council of Worlds and overall didn't do too bad a job as leader. Number 2, Unicron. Unicron was the very first being created in the universe, and was split in two, creating his twin brother Primus. While Primus represented order and structure in the universe, Unicron embodied death and chaos, and would bring both with him wherever he traveled. Unicron has the ability to travel in between realities at will, and uses the consumption of planets to power his end goal of devouring the entire universe. Trapped in the form of a living planet along with his brother, he was able to shapeshift into a giant robotic form, which led to Primus creating the first 13 Cybertronians to counter Unicron's new ability. There are other stories of Unicron's origin, including the animated series where he was the creation of the mad scientist Primacron, which was voiced by Orson Welles in his final role. In the most recent continuity of the IDW comics, Unicron hasn't yet been addressed or mentioned as part of the Cybertronian creation myth, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's not out there somewhere waiting to strike. And number 1, Megatron. Megatron was a miner from Tarn who developed radical ideas about the flaws in his functionist society, which dictated that a person's job and status was tied into the form they found themselves inhabiting. He wrote a treatise titled Towards Peace, which outlined his ideas and eventually grew into a movement called the Decepticons based on the motto, "You are being deceived." What started as a movement turned into a war as Megatron's message turned deadly and came into conflict with Optimus Prime's Autobots, who believed freedom is the right of all sentient beings. The two leaders, once acquaintances and mutual admirers, became the bitterest of rivals in a conflict that spanned the universe. As a leader of the Decepticons, Megatron led a campaign of death and genocide unlike any seen before or since, and was directly and indirectly responsible for the deaths of millions of beings, both Cybertronian and otherwise. After his defeat and surrender, he was put on trial for his crimes, but a loophole allowed him to postpone justice in order to track down the Knights of Cybertron who would pass judgment on him. As co-captain of the Lost Light, Megatron saw beauty in the universe for the first time, and after seeing the scale of his actions, renounced his Decepticon allies in order to take a vow of pacifism and refuse to ever fight, hurt, or kill another sentient being. That's it for this week's Rogues Gallery. Keep an eye on Comics Alliance to have your say in the latest polls.